Greetings, is I, Tantisnar van Dracovin, your lord and emperor, and not having a hair tie in here at the Dracovin Empire. Welcome once again. We're in fact doing the last of the Geniekin. So this is actually me finishing up all the Geniekin. We're talking Pathfinder today. I hope you'll enjoy. I hope you checked out all the other Geniekin episodes I've done. The basic one on Geniekins, all the other different types that have been introduced as of now. If more ever come out some point in time, which I can't say they won't, hey, I'll talk about them then. But for now, we're going to talk about the last one. And, you know, I hope you're enjoying my time here. If you're joining me live on Twitch, hey, thank you for joining me live on Twitch. Oh, great. If you're joining me on YouTube later on, hey, YouTube, always glad to have you here, too. Liking the video, subscribing, follow, you know, ring a bell, all that stuff is really great. Have any of you out there played an Undine? Now, I can say for me, because I always like to share a little bit of story, I haven't played an Undine, but I did have a player who played an Undine Bard using the Water Singer subtype in Pathfinder 1st Edition in the past. Oh, it wasn't in me. I was playing with another person that was it. We were both... That was when I was playing my Geniekin, my Sylph. So I was a Sylph. He was playing an Undine. And it was an interesting dynamic of having two Geniekins in the party. But we both built our characters separately. So, you know. So that was my experience with them. Water Singer's kind of neat. Interesting, combining little bard abilities with some like water bending for something like Avatar: The Last Airbender. Pretty neat. So, as I cough for a second, as usual, I like to start with talking about what books you can reference for information more than what I'm going to talk about if you want to dive deeper into stuff, and a lot of the mechanics. So let me put myself over here and start the books up with over here. So from 1st edition books, Advanced Race Guide does a good position of providing some basic information and, of course, statistics and stuff. Blood of the Elements is another good one. And Inner Sea Races from earlier introductions, along with Planes of Power. From 2nd edition, of course, the Ancestry Guide's a good place to go to, and Rage of Elements does provide some information. So there's a bunch of books you can look at for information on Undines, if you want to look deeper yourself. Yeah. Let's talk Undines. So, where do we start? Well, I said the main information to talk about here, they're Geniekin. Just like all the others I've talked about, but these are Geniekin of water. They are the union of, traditionally, the union of mortal elementals and creatures of the elemental plane of water. Granted, there can be differences. We've talked about that in the way that things do, but in general, elemental water, humanoids, we get an Undine Geniekin. They appear as humanoids with distinct coloration that resembles bodies of water, such as lakes and oceans. All of them have blue eyes, but their skin color ranges from pale blue-white to deep blue to green. They have fin-like ears, webbed hands and feet, straight or thick hair in a darker shade than their skin. They lack gills and cannot breathe underwater. That is a normal thing for most of them. Some can change their skin to blend with humans or underwater terrain. So some do have shifting skin abilities. In order to facilitate swimming, they wear little clothing, tie their hair into tight knots, avoid necklaces and shoes, and prefer weapons that are equally effective on land and water. They are beings of both the land and the water, similarly to their creatures of both the mortal realm and the elemental realm. If an Undine is raised on the plane of water, their parents' courts often develop their skills as bards. So, yeah. If you're an Undine from the plane of water, oftentimes you're encouraged to be a bard. Plenty of Undine sorcerers exist, and they possess elemental or genie bloodlines. And if you are an Undine that goes into clericing, you often serve a water god. So, traditionally, though, if we talk about where an Undine comes from, they're a result of unions between a humanoid and a Phaedon, which, of course, is also known as a Merid. They're the water genies of the elemental plane. Again, the Merid's the old name. The new name is Phaedon. Less commonly, though, a humanoid and a water mephit, an ooze mephit, a Triton, or a Nereid can result in a Undine. Undines remain capable of breeding with humans, but view themselves as a separate race. They do tend to look at themselves very separately. Unlike a lot of Geniekins, they can there's this natural ability that looking at being as different as they are, they do feel separated out. They tend to be more perceptive and agile than your average human, but are generally more lithe with less muscle mass. They are natural swimmers, have dark vision, and naturally resistant to cold. All of them have the natural magical ability to move water once per day, like the hydraulic push spell, and some are quite adept at water magic. Switch over to that one there. Another Undine. So, Undine, out of all the Geniekin that are out there, are the most common to be found in communities of their own. From a young age, they instinctively seek out bodies of water, but really can't live within it due to their inability to breathe water. So most Undine settlements are built on shores or consist of flotillas of ships bound together in a haphazard floating town. Each is governed by elected council of members who hold their position indefinitely, but are often pressured to resign when people are unhappy. They consider themselves protectors of their habitat and work with their neighbors to watch over the water's health. Undine communities sometimes establish their own semi-autonomous quarters within other races' settlements, as long as they and the water are respected. They're often anxious when separated from bodies of water from long durations. They are the most common humanoids to migrate from the material plane to the plane of water. Those Undines are most often magic users or descended from such ancestors who used magic. They either live in small insular communities scattered across the plane or become ferry operators, travel guides, merchants, or diplomats. One exception is the Undines of Vilesk, who call themselves Maradar, and maintain the city as a neutral trading post. Just as a note, Vilesk is the city of splendid waves on the plane of water. Keep that in mind. Due to their mercurial nature, Undines are often distrusted by the plane of water's natives. They are rumored to be planning to band together to become the planar power in their own right. So a lot of them migrate there, and the natural natives are like, are you up to something? When not necessarily, they just find it a better place to live. You know, they like water. It's in their nature. So because of their nature, though, Undine are traders frequently, and will trade with other races or species, ancestries, and hold no particular prejudice against any of them. They're friendly towards elves and gnomes especially, who share their goal of protecting the water environment. They share interest with non-evil humanoids, and commonly trade with humans and dwarves for resources. They're usually neutrally aligned, focusing on the welfare of themselves and their people over all else. When they become adventurers, it's for various reasons. Some wish to defend their body of water, others wish to learn about their ancestors, others just have some wanderlust and are forced to take adventuring after being exiled from whatever home they originally came from. Those that find religion, well, Undines are naturally spirited and do take to it very well. Gozera is a very commonly worshipped deity, the nature one, followed by Hasper in the River Kingdoms, or Desna and Besmara in western Avastian. Those who are seeking strength or revenge on judgmental society are drawn to Xandri, and others venerate Ragadan. But only the most depraved of all Undines can stomach Ragadan as a, well, server. Most Undines do speak Common, as well as they learn Thalassic. That's an important thing to know, that they will traditionally usually have the general Common tongue. And Thalassic being the newer name for Aquan. Again, I'll try to use the old names along with new names for a while at least, before we're all getting used to the changes with removing a lot of that D&D influence. So there are some variants that go beyond your average Undine. Other Mistools, Vapor Undines, who are ephemeral, vaporous, have rounded features. They move deliberately and gracefully, prefer soft, high-quality, neutral-toned clothing or simple jewelry. They're gentle, contemplative, yet resilient and earnest. And they're drawn to water's mystical aspects and seek out political fractured places like Breviary. Rime Souls, or Frost Undines, are usually pale or translucent with blue-tinged skin, preferring austere, crisp clothing. They represent the solidification of change. They're usually ordered, conservative, imperious and aloof, and take well to individual pursuits. They prefer sparsely populated areas or disciplined cities. So it's interesting because water can have different forms, from, air vapor to, being frozen solid. Hence why there are the variants in Undines too. Now, if you are an Undine on Golarion, they're most commonly found in Kelish, Vudra, and particularly Jarame, around the inner city, and to a lesser extent along the eastern coast of the Arcadian Ocean. In the deserts of northern Garun, they're often accepted by villagers who believe they can bring water or rain, or can make it even living as pirates on the River Sphinx. They can be found as far north as the Outsea. Due to the elemental's water's influence, Undines in Outsea often display aquatic races' physical features and serve as liaisons between the ruling aquatic races and the land-dwelling commoners. They're also common in Druma, and the authorities of Dempter prefer them as dock workers due to their efficiency in shipping services. But due to the high wages, some Undines invest in their own businesses after leaving the job. Wansho is home to a growing population of them. It's unknown if these owe their existence to the Kraken overlord Zangagor, or to celestial benefactors who can only intervene by sending these Undine heroes to undermine Zangagor's influence. In Casmaroon, an unusual amount of them reside in the Kara city of Ula Kel, near the vast reserves of the Waterhouses. And for some unknown reason, they're particularly common in the Songsok district. So, there is a bunch of Undine on Golarion. So, keep that in mind. They're around in a bunch of places. And Kelish, I talked about previously. So, but, yeah, there you go. We've talked about Undine now. And that's finished up our talk on Geniekin. Undine are interesting because, as much as, again, there is always, interesting implications about how your parentage happened, how your, blood got there, why you changed into that. And as a Geniekin, they do tend to be more of a union between water-based creatures and mortals. Interestingly enough, when you got Tritons are an aquatic species that live on both the elemental plane and, of course, on Golarion. They're populations of Tritons. So that might be an easy one to find that has, maybe that because it's less common because it's less likely to have children. Harder to have children. Don't know. But regardless, the Undine are interesting. Because unlike a lot of Geniekin, they separate themselves quite rapidly from a lot of the societies they're in, oftentimes not being accepted anyway, and seek out something of their own. This need for water helps a lot, but a lot of them just try to find their own ways in life. Kind of like how water constantly flows, they move to places until they can find a place where they can settle. Like water in a lake, or in the ocean. And they are drawn to each other, in a way, too. Water seeks water. These communities form. They are, in a way, taking steps to become something of their own. And I think that's an interesting thing to talk about. They are, more than any other Geniekin, taking steps to be their own individual beings, their own individual ancestry, finding communities of themselves, distinctly separating themselves out in a way. building something on their own. Sure, they kind of have a place they come from, and more of them can be born from that place. But they themselves, as they are trying to separate out, become their own thing, exists. And you can see that in a lot of their actions, the societies they build. And again, though, they easily connect up with others. As long as you have nothing against the water itself, and you are generally just want to trade with them, you probably could. Plenty of them exist out there. And their different natures is also an interesting thing. The Undine are a fascinating case for a crossblood taking steps to become their own species, which has happened in the past in Golarion. There are ancestries which are now seen more as their own individuals that were resulted from a different ancestry being influenced by something, or a meeting of something becoming its own. So it's not unheard of. As for all of Geniekin, to kind of finish this all up, because this is my last Geniekin video, for now, unless more are released by Paizo, which they could in the future, you never know. Geniekin are definitely an interesting group, and have a lot of fun flavor to them. Granted, as I've always talked with many of them, you can tell some pretty dark stories if that's your want. You can also tell the same light stories, the same fine backgrounds that everybody else does. But it's the fact that, you know, a lot of Geniekin come from this question of, you know, aspects about where they came from. Whether or not it's some kind of elemental influence. Whether or not it's from the union between two beings, which may or may not be in the best light. Whether or not it's the union between influence from some strange magic. Influence from some outer plane. There's a lot of ways that Geniekin can be born. All of them can have their own interesting stories. Were you accepted by your parents? Were you seen as some kind of monster? Were you accepted by your society? Again, seen as something of a threat. It's the difference and the uniqueness of Geniekins in a lot of way. And yes, there are others, the Cambions and similar other planar scions, that oftentimes feel some of this, but many of them can find their own places very easily with various societies, while, because there can be good in societies or evil in societies, can have sometimes of a difficult job, because the similarities that exist between the celestial and the fiendish do make sense. They are natural influences on the world a lot more than nature, than elements. And maybe they stand out a little bit more for that. Maybe that's the little thing. Genie can stand out a little bit more because they're just a step more alien than your average planar scion. Because as much as the world is made of all the elements, a lot of humanoid races and the intelligent races, the ancestries, have taken steps away from that elemental nature. Their societies are away from that. Maybe just enough steps to make these things a little too strange for your average being. That's the question. That slightly more outsider nature that both makes these stories about them maybe a little bit more tragic, but also does make them that little bit more exotic and interesting to play. Your being that's just a little less humanoid. Interesting thought. For now, I'm going to get going. If you enjoyed this, check out all my other stuff. I have my Twitch channel, which I said my shoutouts for, and my YouTube channel, which I said my shoutouts for. My Twitch schedule is Tuesdays, Thursdays for tabletop stuff. Early afternoon, usually between 1 or 2, depending on life schedule, EST time periods. And Saturdays around 11 o'clock, a little bit more exactly. I have a Pathfinder live play. Wednesdays, 9 p.m. EST. In the evening, That's first edition Pathfinder. We play the Crimson Queen. That's the adventure. Come join us. Great show. A lot of fun. Saturdays, Discussing Tabletop, 6 p.m. Check that one out. Talk about tabletop news of the week and more. And, of course, I do other gaming streams and stuff on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays on Twitch. Everything that is tabletop related goes up on YouTube. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you can check out all my other tabletop stuff. I have social media, Discord and Twitter. Of course, that leaves us about that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed learning about this. I thank you for sitting down, listening to me, and enjoying learning about the Undine here, or any of my other videos about ancestries or places in Golarion. And until next time I talk about Pathfinder or some other tabletop world or more, I bid all of you out there a deep and wonderful farewell.